Well, here is what we are doing in this video. We're actually halfway through the day. We got done welding on the body and I ended that section or that video, and now we're starting up with a new video here. But at any rate, I've got to go around this with a wire wheel, and I've got to go down through and cut the holes in the rub rail for the marker lights. I do have a little bit of welding to do that I forgot about. I have to weld this rub rail to this vertical post and the cross member on the back side down in underneath. So we'll jack that up, crawl in underneath that on a creeper and get that welded. Alex went to pick up some primer and some paint, and Sarah has left to go put fuel in the 9560. She's going to take that over to where they're applying manure. She's going to do a little bit of damage control. I'm going to go ahead and run over there and see how they're doing with manure and see how that 9560 is going to be doing on that chisel plow. So we'll check in with her here momentarily. I need to get a jack underneath there, jack it up, do a little welding, and I need to very carefully go down through this side and cut all my holes in the side of the body for our 2-inch marker lights. So let's go ahead and get things underway here. I also need to go around it with a wire wheel. I didn't figure that I needed the girls help me do that. I really don't want them holding on to a large grinder with a wire wheel on it. So that's all we have left to do to the body, and then we'll apply primer to it, and then we'll get it painted. So let's go ahead and get started here. Well, today's the day that Sarah puts the 9560 to work. I'm gonna go ahead and try out them tires. Yeah, nice sunny day. We're supposed to have real good weather here for about a week. So we just got done cutting all of our holes in where the marker lights are going to run down through the rub rail and then through our corner gussets for our front and rear posts. We've got them cut down through both sides. We're going to go ahead and run on over to where they're spreading manure, and we'll see how the 9560 is doing. And then when we get back here, we're going to jump on the wire wheel, and we're just going to polish this steel. Front to back, top to bottom, side to side, so on and so forth. Well, we're going to interrupt this video here for just a second. I am behind with the videos, and Olight has sent me some items that are featured in a sale that's going on right now that I wanted to bring to your attention. They sent me a couple of these O bulbs. They work like this one here. Well, they both work like a night light. This O bulb plus, you can put an app on your phone, and the light will respond to music. You guys can, if you're interested in something like that, you can look on their website and get all the particulars on that. They also sent me a Mauer, I think that's how you pronounce it, Mauer Mini. This is quite the light. Came with a belt loop case, and it is quite the powerful light. We'll just demonstrate it here very quickly, and then we are going to roll into the video. You've got different beam settings here for brightness and whatever, and then it's got, you know, some other functions to it as well. So let's roll into the rest of the video here. Again, click on the link in the description. Take advantage of the sale that they have going on now. If none of these items suit you that they have going on in the sale, just type in Andy FFF in the discount code box and you'll get, I don't know, I think it's 10% off of the non-sale items. So we'll get back into the video. Well, we'll give you guys a little farming action here now. Fitzy and Jared are hauling manure over to this farm to the frac tank, and Andrew is spreading. Sarah's over here somewhere with the chisel plow. She's doing what we call damage control. All she's essentially doing is running, like she did this field here. Ran down on the lower side, then when we start to put manure in there, if we get a rain event and the manure wants to slide off the field, it'll end up being absorbed by that little berm of chisel plowed ground. So Fitzy is just getting done offloading, and Andrew's running the 9320. We'll talk about the 9410 here in a minute. So he'll circle around, get himself underneath the load pipe coming off of the frac tank, and then he's spreading out in that bigger field right there. Sarah's over, I see she's done that field right over there, so she has moved out of the area, I think, and she has moved to a farm just on the other side of the valley there. So Andrew, he'll get into place. The old 93 is doing real good. Ended up putting brakes into this in the winter time, and it's spread a few days here now, so it is hooked to a 6,000 gallon tanker, noon tanker. The 8,000 gallon we're not using right at the current moment. The 9410 is right on the other side of the road there, and we could actually load him. He ain't got to get out. The 9410 has a air throttle problem, emissions, whatever, and Kaz is going to come and replace the air throttle on it. That's right across the road here. And Jake thinks it needs an ECU. If the air throttle doesn't take care of the problem, then he believes it's going to need an ECU. He thinks it's common with that, and he thinks it needs an ECU. So that is not good. I just got word from my brother that the transmission might potentially be gone on the 7290 that has an IVT transmission in it. He was spreading fertilizer with it here. Well, he's been spreading a few days this week. Had a couple of error codes that developed, and he's got her full. We don't want to. Oh, there we go. There we go. Damn amateur. Damn amateur. He had some error codes, and I didn't figure that filled awful fast. Had some error codes here earlier on this week. Jake sent one of his guys over. They looked at it, and they think the transmission is no good. So we'll go ahead and pull up alongside Andrew here, maybe get some field spreading action. And then we'll go over and check on Sarah, see how she's doing. She brought the 9560 over with the chisel plow to do quote-unquote damage control, and then they're gonna put that tractor on the 8,000 gallon Noon spreader, which is parked right over there. So this is a hay field here. We're gonna switch this over to corn this year, and they're gonna go ahead and get some manure applied to it. Well, I'm glad he's taking this side and not the other side. Oh, the little sucker's taking the other side there, so it looks like we're gonna have to go in reverse. Either that or I drive into manure. She's got to jump the hedgerow and do that one field over to her left. And there's another field that jogs down over to the edge over there. There's an apartment house. She's going to do a little strip down along the bottom side of that where it comes up next to the end of 695. Well, Jared hasn't had the best news for me in the last hour and a half or so here. The Western Star ended up doing a regen, and where the airlines come out from underneath the cab and go back to the valve body got melted by the exhaust. We had been using that truck for, I don't know, about 6 weeks. And apparently today, when it did a regen, it got a little hot and ended up melting the airlines. So we figured we can go ahead and put the 900 on it. There isn't any salt on the roads anymore. We've been holding off on using this on this tanker because we just got done doing the frame here, the painting on the frame, a month or 6 weeks ago. And he had noticed that when he checked the oil was a little high, but he didn't think nothing of it. He said, well, maybe it just got filled a little too full. Started loading manure, and he seen that there was oil dripping out the blow-by. So he got to look in here a little better and noticed it was low on coolant. So I said, well, that's not good. If you recall, we had the engine done on this truck back in September 2022 at a platinum kit put in it by our local cat dealer. So we checked the coolant. It was excessively low on coolant. We dropped the oil out of it, dropped the rest of the coolant out of it, which only had about 5 gallons of coolant in it, and it had over 5 gallons worth of oil in it. And here is the oil right here, and it is a little gray, not much, but yeah, this is how much oil came out of it. So it generally holds 10 gallons. It's got about 6, 7 gallons too much in it. So we drained the rest of the coolant out of it. We've got straight water in it, and we're gonna run it here for a little bit. We're not sure if it's got an oil cooler issue or if it has a liner issue. So we're gonna run it some. We don't want coolant in there because the coolant could hurt the main bearings, but I think that if this truck has had coolant going in the oil, the truck has been sitting for a month or 6 weeks. I'm not too sure if maybe the main bearings aren't kissed already, just with the presence of the coolant in the oil. So we're gonna have to see how this ends up. Not good, right, Bob? Well, we are back to the shop here. Jared has left with the 900, and we're just gonna have to see how that pans out. I'm gonna go ahead and put a pair of safety glasses on, put a couple of earbuds in, and I'm just gonna work from one side to the other with the wire wheel, and I'm not going to listen to the phone or anything. So let's go ahead and get this polished up so that we can get some primer onto it. Hopefully, when Jared gets done tonight, he has good news for me. Well, we are now ready to throw some primer on this silage box. We've went around it with the wire wheel. We've done inside and out. And I also went around it with some acetone to clean any oil residue off of the steel. So I've decided to take the tailgate off of this to make things easier to paint. You can see that we have it hanging from the gantry. We have done this a few different times as far as taking the tailgate off to make things easier to paint. The only problem with it is going to put it back on, you got to be really careful that you don't scratch anything up going back on. But the nice thing about having the gate off, you haven't got to raise it up and down, and it gives you a starting point and an ending point. You can start on this back corner or the other side and work from one side to the other and go all the way around, and you haven't really got to worry about getting into an area that you had applied paint on first and having it not cure out right and look glossy. So with having the gates separate, we can kind of keep that problem out of the paint. Now we are going to use an epoxy primer on the silage box, inside and out. I was going to use a polyurethane black, well, I was going to use a polyurethane paint. However, we're going to paint the outside of this box red. And polyurethane in the color red was like $400 to $500 a gallon. The boxes that I did last year, we used polyurethane, but it was black, and it was a couple $100 a gallon. It didn't hurt the pocketbook so bad. What we're actually going to use on this is implement enamel. So we're going to paint the inside black, and then we're going to paint the outside an International Harvester red, which we're going to mix a little bit of Ford red in with that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll apply the primer. We'll let that tack up, and then we'll go right ahead and put on our top coat. I ended up buying a new pressure pot. Look at that. That's a fancy one. Not really, but this is a Central Pneumatic paint pressure pot that I bought from Harbor Freight. This one here is the one that I've had for 20 some years. It's a Sharpie pressure pot, and it started leaking pretty good here last year, so I figured I would go ahead and replace it. Now I have several of these liners, these plastic liners. I've got a box of them. I was worried that they weren't going to work in this Central Pneumatic Harbor Freight Special. However, they do. And this pot is almost identical to this Sharpie pot, which, if I remember right, this was like $400 or $500 back in the day, and the damn thing is the same exact thing as this Harbor Freight job. So I don't know if Sharpie went to a different design, or Sharp, however you pronounce it. It's S-H-A-R-P-E. I don't know if the E is silent or not, but at any rate, you really can't. This would have been blue at one time with a gray lid, and of course all we have done is just clean the inside out after a couple years of using it, and the whole outside is all covered in whatever paint that has gone through it. So yes, this is the same thing. I did take the regulators off of this older paint pot because the regulator that came on this one only had one pressure setting on it. It wasn't a dual regulator, so we want to regulate the air going into it, and then we can regulate the air going out at the same time. I don't know what I paid for this, but the new hose and gun came in a kit, and we'll go ahead and see how it works. I'm hoping that it does the job, because I'd like to get this done in about 4 hours. So what we're going to be using is an essential epoxy primer from PPG. So we're going to go ahead and get this stuff mixed up and get rolling here. So we'll join up with you once we get the primer all on there. We'll have to let that dry for an hour or so, and then we can apply our top coat. I'm going to do the inside first, then I can do the outside, then I'll once I get done with it, then I can clean the pressure pot out, the paint gun, the hoses, and everything else. And then we will do the inside with black, clean out, and then we'll go ahead and start with the red here. So let's go ahead and get started. Nothing looks any better than iron when you get done welding it and then you clean it up. That is just a cool look. I don't know if you could get away with just spraying that with clear coat and having it preserve itself or not, but that's just a cool look to it. So we'll join up with you once we get the primer all on. Well, we've got everything primed inside and out. We are getting ready to throw on the top coat now. This is dry. It dries real quick. I mean, I did the inside and then I started on this corner and I went around it and then I put another coat on the tailgate. The amount of time it took me to clean the gun up and turn the camera on here, it's dry. So that's a pretty good primer. Now we're going to put black on the inside. We'll have to clean the paint pot out again after we do black, and then we'll spray red on the outside. Now I would just paint one color around the whole box, but the red paint was a little hard to come by, and we're actually going to have to mix New Holland or Ford red with Case International red, and then we're using just a regular black paint here. We're using Rust-Oleum paint. This should be pretty good. It's not a polyurethane, it's an enamel, but it'll do fine. It's just a truck box. So we'll go ahead and get this into the paint pot, get the proper amount of thinner in there, shoot the inside, and then clean out, and then shoot the color on the outside here. You can see our overhead door that has been up forever is dirty. So it kind of almost looks white. So let's go ahead and splash some color on here. Well, I've got the inside done. I ended up having, for whatever reason, the straw, the tube that goes down inside that paint pot, it leaves maybe a half a quart of paint in the pot. So what I did is I just poured it on the floor and I used a roller to get this last panel painted here. So what we're using on the outside of it is we're going to paint it red. And Tractor Supply, they only carry 2 gallons of any color. I would have rather have painted it all with International Harvester red, but we would have had to have driven around the whole state here to get enough paint to paint it all one color. So we got International Harvester red here and Ford red in this container. And the Ford red is just a little bit brighter than the International Harvester red. Back when I used to build hay wagons, we ran into the same problem. We couldn't get enough paint of one color. They did stock a little bit more of it back then, but not as much anymore. The New Holland red and the International Harvester red are very close. Ford red and Massey Ferguson red are just about identical as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix it 50-50, and that is the red that we're going to put on the outside of the box. The other thing I could do, I could put International Harvester red on one side and Ford red on the other. I don't think you'd ever notice it. You're never going to see both sides at the same time, right? So let's go ahead and get the color on there. Well, there we go, all painted everything's all cleaned up, put away. Now we just let this set a couple days because we've got other things that we're gonna actually work on here, and it'll be nice just to kind of let this dry. So we'll join up with you tomorrow. This took just over 6 hours to paint. So probably would have been a little quicker if we would have used the same color inside. The same color. It would have went a little quicker if we used the same color on the inside that we used on the outside. So we'll join up with you tomorrow.